All right, welcome to the I Am A Solution show. I'm your host, Coach Warren.
I'm the co-host, Coach MU.
And we about to get into it today, man. Our topic today is getting your house in order.
Holding the crib down.
What does that really mean? How does that look? And what's the benefits of just really keeping your house tight? You feel me? And so, yeah, we really felt like that, you know, if you give in the values and the morals and the standards at the house, it should matriculate to the school. It should matriculate out to the community.
And it should curb that violence.
Absolutely curb the violence, because now you have a measurement to measure your decisions with. And, you know, there's a lot of single parent households out here. You know, you could only teach what you know. And I was brought up in a 2-parent household. My parents got divorced when I was about probably like 7, 8. And there was a difference. You know what I mean? Like, you could really tell. But the saving grace for me was my dad was like a stickler. Like, he was real kind of militant with our upbringing and creating boundaries for us on what to do and what not to do. So,
and I as well, I grew up in a 2-parent household, and you know, there's a lot of benefits from it. But that's not to say that if you're not in a 2-parent household that you can't get those same benefits. But I think it's important for the mother and the father, one way or the other, to be instilling all those values and beliefs into the kids that they're raising. And I think the stuff that we're going to touch on today is going to let everybody know why that's important and how that can help prevent the violence that we're seeing out here in the community.
And so, real quick, you speak on violence. What do you think is like a major cause of the violence that we're seeing in our communities? And this is not only locally, but like if you just look across the country, we got identical issues.
When you talking about, like, when we talking about in the household, from what our topic is?
No. So let's start with the outside and how that, and we'll reel it back to the household. So I just want to know, from your perspective, what are some of the causes of our community violence?
Man, there's so many factors, man. We could talk about education. We could talk about, drugs, how that affects the families. We could talk about, generations of violence and domestic abuse and all this other stuff that contributes to these kids being around the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Not having enough positive influences in your life. Like, there's so many different factors, I believe, that plays into this violence. But I think we have to look at each situation in its own. There's no one size fits all type of thing. You know what I mean? I think each situation, we gotta take it as that situation and break it down from that situation. Yeah, you'll probably find some similarities, but I think there's just a bunch of factors that play into it. But I definitely believe, education,
and where does education start at?
At home.
At the house. What else? Keep going.
It start at home, like education at home, education in the schools. You know what I mean? I think being involved in any type of outside of the education activities helps build character.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's in a religion, whether that's in the sports, whether that's in dance, whether that's in chess club, all that type of stuff develops a well-rounded child, and it gets them goal-oriented. It has them seeing something outside of just being in the streets. And it gives them a mindset to think differently. You know what I'm saying? What you think?
I agree with everything you just said, and I would just add to that those relationships you talked about earlier and what you were saying, it all extends from the home. That's why I wanted to start with, what do you think? Why do you think the community, the community violence is like it is? So, we talk about standards, values, rules, morals, and all these things are started at home. And I believe if you miss this part of raising your child, if you don't get this installed early, there's just way too many influences outside of the house that's going to taint the way you think as a child. You feel me?
Absolutely.
So I just really believe that everything starts from there. Before you even go to school, before I sent my son to preschool, he knew his numbers, he knew his shapes, he knew his colors. I didn't put that on the schools to do that because I wanted him to be prepared for what they were going to ask him to do, right?
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, and that's, just being prepared for school, at the same time, I'm preparing them for life.
So let me ask you, how did you know to do that? How did you know that you, like, how did you decide, like, you know what, I'm going to take that off of the teacher. I'm a put in this effort with my child. Like, where did you get that from?
So that started from home because we just talked about, we grew up in a 2-parent household. And so, before I actually went to school, I knew all these things. Mm-hmm. But then there's a difference. You could tell a difference. There's an obvious difference from kids who have both parents versus kids who, grow up with grandma, grow up with just mom, even grow up with just dad. You know what I mean? There's a clear-cut difference in my experience growing up. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to prepare my child as much as possible so he can excel in this new environment that I'm going to put him in. Mm-hmm. So it all just started from home, just seeing my mom do it, seeing my dad do it as well. But when that divorce happened, see, this is when the outside influences kind of flooded my life. You're a child, so I'm not sure if my parents knew down the line if they were going to be divorced or not. Mm-hmm. But what I do know is that the things that they prepared me with, such as knowing right from wrong, like simple stuff, helped me navigate through the streets for real. Not to say that I didn't slip up and mess up, but I always knew that there was another way. I
think you make a point when you say it helped you navigate through the street, because like I've done some stuff that if my dad or mom knew, they'll be like, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, my conscience always felt guilty. Right. You know what I mean? and that steered me away from partaking in this. Even being around it, even having friends that partaked in it, yeah, it had me be able to stand on my own and be like, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah. Like I can't do that because, I have parents that I have family members that are looking at me a certain way, and I feel that that's important. And I feel like nowadays we don't put enough emphasis on that, on make like the standards that the family has set for you, mm-hmm, and you living up to them standards that the family has set for you. And for one reason or the other, and I don't want to make it like if you don't got both parents that you still can't do what you do, because we see a lot of examples like that.
Absolutely.
But if you think if you're taking a percentage, I mean, no one's gonna argue that it's better to have both parents in the household, right? Facts. And I feel like that if we put more emphasis on that's the family standard and them values and them morals, I think that it's going to just be better for the child. But then the task is when you have generation after generation after generation where they weren't taught that. Right. So I know I've experienced where I'll see the grandma, mm-hmm, or the granddad, you'll see how toxic they are to the parent and the grandchild. And you'll see this, and it's a touchy subject because it's like, how do we intervene when that comes to it? You know what I'm saying? And like, that's the task, I think, moving forward in the future, to try to curb this community violence, because it's these kids who those standards haven't been set for them.
Yeah.
And some have, and some kids is just they just want to be in the mix.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I think for those kids who are easily influenced, they can go one way or the other based around their surroundings and based around who's involved in their life.
So it's, you know, something you said about, you know, the single parent households. It's not guaranteed that you're going to have, you know, a child that doesn't grasp some of the stuff that, you know, the 2-parent household kids grasp. You know what I mean? Honestly, those kids who don't have both parents, to me, they grow up a little too quick. They don't have the understanding, but they do have the experiences. Mm-hmm. And I just think sometimes some of these older experiences with the younger kids, they can't quite understand how to, you know, react to some things, you know.
It's traumatic.
Yeah.
Some of the things is traumatic. If a parent is dealing with a drunk significant other, right, and they're coming into the household with this child, that is trauma for the child because
Absolutely.
They're seeing all these behaviors that they have no clue what's going on.
Yeah.
And the parent can't be that educated because they wouldn't have this drunk person around their child. You know what I'm saying?
So that presents sometimes to a kid probably as normal.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't understand, and that's where you say the experience, they don't understand that that's not normal.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right,
so
right.
they think that is normal. You know what I mean? And that is, like me, I don't drink. I don't smoke, I don't drink. And a lot of people be shocked about that and I'm just like, you know, I know there's social drinkers, so we ain't talking about the people that, you know, go out to get their drink every now and then. We talking about the alcoholics.
Yeah.
The alcoholics.
Boys copping cases every night.
We talk about the ones, you know, they come home and they violent.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We talking about those type, like that's traumatic for a child, man. And I see it so much. Like I let like a lot of stuff I keep close to vest because, you know, I earned that trust of people in the community where they'll call me in a situation and no one knows that they called me, and me and them keep it like, don't nobody gotta know. Let's problem solve and they get it together. Yeah. But it's like I see it so much that I'm just like, dang, man, this is a problem that we don't have, like, we ain't big enough to solve this problem. This is a major problem. It ain't specific to Homewood. It ain't specific to Pittsburgh. It's specific to black people. And I truly believe it's by design, man. Like, you know what I mean? From us coming over here to this country, I truly believe that a lot of the stuff we deal with is by design. Mm-hmm. And we have to be smart enough to know, like, what type of time it's on. You know what I'm saying? We got to know, like, look, if we don't take control of this, it's going to get worse.
Right.
We can't wait to see if the governor, you know what I mean, the senator, the mayor, we can't wait for them to do something to, like, we have to address it, and it starts at home.
Yeah.
And for the parent who don't know, like what would you tell the parent who don't know what to do at home? Like, what if they see us talking about it and they're like, dang, I ain't even think like I should be teaching my kids 2, 3, 4. Like, where do they go to get some type of guidance on what they should be doing for their child?
Well, just like you said, there's no just one solution. You know, every situation is different, and I would just say that, just like I tell the kids, you know, the kids that look up to us, control what you can control, which is your household. Prepare your child for the environments that they're going to be in. Now, let's say you didn't have that type of upbringing. Then I would say we have to do what's in the best interest of our kids. You know what I mean? We wouldn't just put our kids in any environment. You know, like, we still got some parents that just out there partying and leaving their kids with whoever. I wouldn't suggest that. I would suggest that, you know, everything that you put your child into, that there is a standard. You know what I mean? Like, there's a standard for how they're going to be treated, who they're going to be around, what type of people these are, to teach them, you know, great values. So I would just say, we have to be selective with where we put our children. And not only that, we got to sacrifice some stuff. Sometimes we can't go out.
Man.
For the most part, we can't go out.
My bad. This is...
You know what I mean? Like, where's the sacrifice coming for your child? Because if you look at psychology and those things, it says in the first 5 years, your child is pretty much who he or she is going to be. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't get them early, then it's going to be tough to try to get them later because of so many influences. You got to think about it when you take your child to preschool, right? There's 15 to 20 other kids in there. So that means there's 15 to 20 other influences and personalities and standards that they got to deal with. Now, if you haven't poured into your child, those standards while he's at home, then guess what? That child is going to be easily influenced by something cool, something even that they like, right? And it may not be, what was taught at home. And so I would just say, teach those right and wrong things at home. Create the standards at home. Create the standards that you didn't have. Be the change that you want to see, and you got to start at home.
That's where I be sympathetic to the parent, man, because I be feeling like, a lot of the mothers especially, like when I see them have their kid in a bad environment or a bad situation, I be feeling for the parent because I'm like, I know this parent don't know no better.
Yeah.
Like, and you would think how you was raised, like, man, they gotta know better. But the reality is, some of them think like this is what it is. Right. They think it's cool to just cuss at their kids crazy. You know what I mean? They think it's cool to have their kids around these toxic people. Like they think it's not saying they think that's cool, but they think it's okay.
Yeah, like it's normal. Like,
it's normal. So it's like I be sympathetic to the parent, and I try to I forget who said it, man, but I said that they said we gotta always have soft eyes on our people, man. Like I forget who said it, man, but that stuck with me because I'm like, when our people been through so much and there's so much struggle that we gotta fight for every day.
Yeah.
Like we gotta have soft eyes on them. You know what I'm saying? We get and I from what I took at that is, we gotta look at the good in them, even when you see them doing the wrong thing. So you gotta say, all right, I know this parent is committed to their child because they're trying to get them involved in something. Right. I know this parent want their child to do better because they trying to get them involved in stuff to not be out here in these streets running around. Mm-hmm. So how can we help this parent and educate this parent on certain things certain values they should be instilling in their kid so that their kid can be successful, so that their kid can have good judgment and all of this, because I struggle with myself, with my kids. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, my kids put me through it sometimes. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know what type of, standard I have. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, there's no perfect way to do it. It's like kids is going to test your parenting, but we can't, damn, I gotta take that call. We can't, that's an important phone call right there, but don't leave a message. Like, we can't, you know what I mean? We just got to have soft eyes on
and soft eyes don't mean make excuses.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Soft eyes to me means, like you said, we got to look at the good in our people. We got to look at the good that they're trying to do for their child.
And build on it.
Meet them where they're at, just like we do with our kids. Yeah. And offer advice. Like with me, I don't try to tell no parents what to do. I say, look, here's my situation. This is what work for me. You can take what you want from that might work for you. This way, now we don't got parents, being offended because they believe like I'm trying to tell them what to do and trying to tell them how to parent, because just like we said, every situation is different.
And I feel like me, you, other coaches and other people in the community, that's where I feel like we're the most effective, because we build a relationship with these parents, right?
Yeah.
To where we can kind of talk to them like other people can. Yep. You know what I mean? Like you talking to your brother, your sister, like, man, what is you doing? Like, come on, yo, you got your kid. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like you could talk to them like that, because you build a relationship. They know you got love for them. They know we got trust with each other, and they know anything you're telling them is coming from a place of love. So it's like when you get into these programs, and this is where it get back to a bigger question when these resources get funded to different organizations, different people who are not invested in the people in the community, like, because they don't take the time to build that relationship. Yeah. They're a number to them. So they come in a number and they cannot have the conversation I can have with them. Yeah. Because we took the time to build the relationship with them. We know them. They know we got love for them. So then you can talk to them directly.
And they can accept it.
You can be like, bruh, you can't be smoking weed in the car, bringing your son to practice. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, they know that's coming from a place of love, and they be like, damn, you right. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you can tell they feel that. And then when you see they stop doing it, that's what I'm saying, have soft eyes, because they probably came up in that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They probably, or they just probably didn't know. They just probably on.
It's normal.
It's normal. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And the same thing with some of the moms I see when I see them cussing at their kids. Yeah. It's like, if I didn't have that relationship for them, I couldn't come up to him like, I was like, why are you cussing at him like that, man? Right. Let him look at him. He all down and sad. Now I got building back up. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't have that conversation, and they be like, yeah, you right, coach. You know what I'm saying? And developing that relationship, it gets them to allow you to communicate with them, and then you could give them advice on, you know, the morals, on what you do with your child. Yeah. On, you know what I'm saying? Like, you saying how before your son even went to school, you taught him.
Absolutely.
Like, that's from, you learned that. That's a learned behavior, right? Like me, my dad was big on Black history. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He was big on Black history. A lot of people don't know, but I was homeschooled until I went to Westinghouse. Okay. I was homeschooled until I went to Westinghouse because my mom and dad refused to let the public education system cloud my thinking. Yeah. You know what I mean? So they was heavy on Black history. They was heavy on empowering Black people, helping the community. You know, my dad was heavy into that. You know what I'm saying? So that got instilled in me. So what I try to do with my kids, which I haven't been doing as good a job, like my dad probably be like, man, what? Like, I did all this, you in it, like, but I try to always put the Black history into everything, because that's getting washed out. Yeah. And when they got that Black history, these kids got a sense of pride in themselves, because they're like, dang, we created the light bulb. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, dang, I didn't know that. Like, we created the traffic light. Like, I didn't know that. So that gets them thinking, like, man, they can be something, and they're just not what they see on TV, whether it's an athlete, a entertainer, you know what I'm saying, or a drug dealer, because those are the constant things the kids is getting fed. And once we take over, like, we gotta take ownership of us, man. We gotta be like, take control. But with that, these entities that get this money, like, if they're not putting their money, if they keep putting in the money in the same thing and there's no change, they're part of the problem too. And that's like, I feel like we need to call all of that. I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I feel like we need to call that out, because when the money gets invested to the people who are invested in the people in the community, you're going to see a change, because you're going to be more effective.
But does that change? Like, is it, like, it seems like it's a concerted effort to keep us right where we're at.
Right. It by design.
So, you know, is it realistic that we're actually going to get the support that we actually need, or is this effort going to have to be just straight independent? Which I don't mind, because with independence comes, you know, you don't really have no boundaries on how you get to work with folks. Right. You feel me? Right. So, so to me, it just seems like a concerted effort. But at the same time, I would just say this: control what you can control. You know, our whole topic today is about, you know, making sure your household is in order, and what that means, and how that affects your child moving forward in different environments.
Hey, Coach, I ain't gonna lie to you. I think that is a major solution. Like, I think if we talking about what's the solution, what you just said, control what you can control. Mm-hmm. If you can control your household, and this person control their household, and that person control their household, that's a solution.
Absolutely.
So we got to get the parents on controlling what they can control. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I know that's going to be a task.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because these is generations of
But there's
learned
help.
behaviors. Right?
There's help.
There's help
to
out
do it.
there, and you gotta want better for your kid than you want for yourself. You know what I'm saying? You gotta want to do better. You gotta want to.
So let me ask you this. So what's the biggest influence when it comes to, you know, the household, like a child in the household? Who has the biggest influence?
I think it's at different stages in the kid's life. I think different parents have the influence. So I think during the nurturing years, from birth to like maybe 9, 10 years old, I think mom is the major influencer. Yeah, the dad may influence. They may be scared of the dad. The dad may be the enforcer, but just an overall influence. I think it's the mom because they're nurturing, and those are the years I feel like the kids need to be nurtured. When you start getting into the teenage years, I think the dad is the influencer because now they get a little bit more real.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even if it's a female or even if it's a girl or a boy, right?
Yeah.
I think the dad's a little because I think dad's is more concrete. You know what I'm saying? I think we more bottom line, this is what it is, this is what you're gonna have to deal with, this is what you gotta do. And I think dad's is more realistic.
Less emotion.
Definitely less some emotion. You know what I'm saying? Even though nowadays people might argue that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Because
in certain instances.
I done seen some dads be emotional. You know what I'm saying? More emotional than the mom, but I feel like at different stages. I definitely towards the teenage years, for the boys, and the girls, I think it's the dads.
Yeah.
Because what I know, you know, and I know nowadays when stuff go down in the streets, it's the girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's the girls.
They're a little tougher this go round.
The girls got the masculine energy.
They do.
They got the masculine energy, and I feel like they do that to show off for the boys.
But
right?
this is why I asked about the influence. So you got, let's say you got young parents. Like when I was coming up, I'm No Limit. I'm watching videos every day. I'm playing these certain songs, the certain music. I'm in the hood environment. You know, I'm smoking, I'm doing whatever the case may be. Now, for me, I did none of that stuff around my kids. But that doesn't mean that the influence wasn't there. You feel me? The lifestyle of a young person, right? Trying to raise a child. So how do you, let's say you demonstrated some not so admirable things in front of your child and they kind of pick it up. You know, how do you walk that back or influence that out of them?
So, your example of like listening to No Limit and stuff like that, right? Me, myself, with my kids, like at one point I was just super strict. Like, it better not have cussing in it. It better not be talking about hoes, this, that, and the third, none of that. It better not. But then as they got a little older, then I started giving them the real. I was like, listen, you can't just listen to this type of music all the time. I said, because that's going to mess with your subconscious. Mm-hmm. And then we had a talk about your subconscious. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I was like, you can't just listen to that all the time. I was like, because that's life. And I always use Tupac as an example. Tupac had I See Death Around the Corner. Mm-hmm. Then he had songs like Mama. Mm-hmm. Or Keep Your Head Up. Mm-hmm. Because he's telling you real life. Yeah. He's like, sometimes it might get a little dirty in your life. But other times it's not, and you should be striving to be like this. But if you fall off, it's cool. You can always get back on. If you fall off, it's cool. You can always get back on. So it's like you going up and you gonna have dips, but you gonna keep going up. And I'm like, I try to give them the real, like everything ain't gonna be peaches and cream, but you should always strive for the best.
Yeah.
But don't get too down on yourself, or don't think you're a bad person if you partake in this, because I be listening to some ratchet music still.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? At my age, you know what I'm saying? But my kids be like, Dad, your playlist is random.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I might listen to some Yo Gotti, some you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some anything and then I might have some slow R&B, you know what I'm saying?
So
you know?
where did those conversations take place?
Like you know, coming back from practice, you know what I'm saying? Like, or if they're in the house and I just hear them playing all this music and it's like an hour go by and you're still playing the same music, I just be like, you can't just be listening to the same music nonstop all day.
Yeah.
You can't just do that.
And when you talk about the subconscious, like, what does that do? Let's say you just one of them NBA young boy all day.
It desensitizes you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So stuff that's not normal becomes normal to you.
So we gotta put boundaries and limits even in the house.
Yes, right. Because if you're constantly listening to a song where they're talking about shooting somebody, talking about somebody getting killed, talking about selling drugs, when you're around it and you see it, it's going to be normal to you.
It's going to be normal.
And that's where your subconscious, that's what I'm trying to say, that's your subconscious. You don't even know that that's getting normalized because it's in your head. It's like how this young girl, right? She was always getting picked on, you know what I mean? And she would always like be bucking back and this, that, and the third. And I would say, like, what's the problem? And she used to say, they keep calling me ugly. And I asked her, do you feel ugly? She said, yeah. I said, well, why do you feel ugly? She said, because they keep calling me ugly. So if someone is constantly saying something, if you're constantly hearing it, you're just going to believe that. Yeah. It's going to become regular to you.
Yeah.
When this young girl was not ugly at all, it's just, I think because she was so smart, you know, that's a form of bullying. People started picking with her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She was dark skinned. You know what I'm saying? People started picking with her. And I had to tell her, like, listen, you have to believe in yourself. And I be real with kids. Because I be like, you have to believe in yourself. You have to take ownership of your own stuff as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, especially with the black boys. You know how hard we be going on them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I be telling them, it ain't fair.
Yeah.
It ain't right.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but I was where you at.
Yeah.
I was where you at.
Because that's real.
And I was like, if God didn't make us with these big shoulders, he wouldn't have put this on us. Yeah. I was like, we can handle it.
Yeah.
I've been where you at, and I'm handling it. I'm like, you can handle it.
Yeah.
Like, be accountable for yourself. Like, forget if your mom shouldn't have to tell you to do this. You know you shouldn't have did it.
Right.
You know, and that is effective. And you know why it's effective, because we see from the kids we dealt with young to now when they come back to us, you know what I mean? And they be like, man, coach, when you said this to me, or like, man, you my favorite coach, man, because you know, and they
kept it real.
And they still want to do better.
Yeah. Because
they know you still got love for them. So they still want to be that good example that you put, that, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's what we talking about. The standard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They know we set a standard, so they want to live up to that standard we set.
And even in their mistakes, we coached them out of just kind of beating themselves up with the guilt of, oh, I did this, and gave them some understanding. And so this is where, if you don't have this sort of thing in the household, this is why you have to find safe spaces with people who can positively influence your child, and give them understanding of where they're at and what they're doing. You know what I mean? So if it's not in the household, because we started off talking about, you know, this stuff being in the household, but realistically, you know, everybody don't got the two-parent household. Everybody doesn't have the understanding, but this is where, you know, you find those safe spaces where you can plug your child into. And let's say it's a mom and you got a Coach MU who could break some things down and get through to your child. This is what we have to do as a community. You know what I mean? This isn't all on you, right? This isn't all on me. You know, I brought my son down to play in Homewood so he can get, you know, a different experience, right? get different guidance from different strong positive men who have the same goal, and so he knows it's just not me. Like the standard is universal,
right? And what you saying becomes super real to it,
right? Exactly.
Because sometimes kids listen to you be like, all right, Dad, but then when they see it, they be like, Dad, you was on it. Like my oldest, Seuss, he stays saying like, yeah, you was right, Dad. Yeah, you was right, Dad. Yeah. The most resistant. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But this dude,
now he knows.
He be like, yeah, you was right, Dad. And he's still in the process of still learning and seeing and achieving. And I keep trying to encourage you, man, just finish. Just finish your goals that you set. Just finish.
And just to wrap up this kind of segment of our show, we were talking about getting your house in order. And we asked a lot of questions. And I'm going to pose some of these questions to the people watching and viewing. And would love to hear your feedback on, what you think some of the answers to these questions are. All right. And one of the questions I'll ask is, how does teaching standards, values, rules, and morals at the home translate into the behaviors outside the home in the community? Right? You could define these words. You can look up these words and break them down to get a better understanding of the question, so you can actually give me a good answer. All the answers that we receive, we will answer as many as we can on our next episode. Another question that we spoke on is, where did your standards come from, right? And some parents, maybe grew up in generations of single parenthood, right? And so there's some things that you would be missing. But where does your standards come from? What morals are you teaching your children and the children you work with? Because we talked about how everything starts at home. If they're not getting it at home, where are they getting it at, right? So that's a question for you guys. Where are the morals being taught at? Are they being taught at home? Are you relying on somebody else to teach your children these things? Also, do you have expectations of your children? And what are they and why? And not only that, how are you preparing them to meet those expectations? Because it's very, very critical that if you have an expectation, for your child, that you give them some tools to work with to reach those expectations. So, what kind of expectations do you have on your child? And if you don't have any expectations and you just saying, I'm gonna just let him grow and live and let her grow and live and be whoever she want to be, why take that route? Why not give them some guidelines and some guidance on to, where they could go and who they could become? We also talked about who has the biggest influence on your child. We're talking about preventing and intervening in violence and gun violence in our communities. A lot of these things that we see in the community, I believe, could be halted with the right preparation for what our children are going to face on the outside. So who's the biggest influence, right? Are you the biggest influence? And if you are, what types of things are you doing at home that kind of co-sign some of the things that your children are going to face when they get out in the community, or that they're actually doing out in the community, right? So if you're at home smoking weed around the kids, and I use that example because a lot of people do it, and then they're surprised when their kid is skipping school smoking weed with the homies. So are we influencing and co-signing these actions? I want to hear from you. Does that even matter? That you demonstrate certain things in front of your children and then they go out in the community and it's a negative thing. So I want to hear what you guys got to say about that. And then also, can certain influences undermine the morals and values that you're teaching your child? Let's say it's a best friend who isn't so respectful of the space or respectful of who's around, and they're, pretty much doing too much, so to speak, cussing and doing things around kids that you really shouldn't do. I recently saw a video of a 3-year-old's party. Maybe she was 4, between 3 to 5, and they had on Sexy Red, and they had, the kids were singing the song, and they were throwing money, and then in the background you heard the parents cheering them on like it was a cheer competition, right? I just believe those type of influences are going to be disastrous to your children if you're co-signing that, because now you're going to manifest everything that these kids are saying in this music that doesn't make sense to do, right? So those are some of the questions that I would like you guys to answer. You guys tap in. And what's the solution? What's some or one of the solutions to getting your household in order, right? We have to create the boundaries. We have to create the standards, because if you want your child to function in that and see things differently, it has to start at home. It can't start when they get to preschool. It can't start when they get to high school. It can't start any other place, in my opinion, than home, because home is actually your first influence. Mom and dad are your first teachers. And so we have to recognize our power. We have to recognize our influence, and we have to sacrifice some of the negative things that we're doing so they don't just bleed onto the children. And then they grow up thinking certain things are normal. Sometimes we demonstrate some of these things. I was a young parent, but then I grew out of it. How do we walk some of those things back? How do we give understanding to some negative things that we were doing in front of our children so they don't think that's normal? I want to hear from you guys. This is I Am A Solution Show. I'm your host, Coach Juan. Me and Coach Moo will see y'all next time.